Hey folks, welcome to another installment of the P&K podcast. I'm your co-host Paul Marshall.
And I'm Keion Grissom. What you got for us, Paul?
I've been watching the NBA for a long time now, but recently I've kind of noticed something within the last few years or so. I've seen more and more injuries happen, and it's happened at an alarming rate that I haven't previously seen before. Last night I was watching the Oklahoma City Thunder and Golden State Warriors. And Kevin Durant, he injured himself previously, but he went down and he re-injured his ankle. In the game before that, someone else went down. I don't think I've ever seen a point where more and more guys are getting injured. Is it they're playing too many games? Is it dietary, something in the water? Are they not thin enough? Are they not in shape? I have no idea what's going on. But usually when injuries happen, they're more sparse apart. Now, this could be the bad luck of the draw, but now they're all coupled together. What are your thoughts? Why are so many players in the NBA getting injured like this?
That's a good question, Paul. And it's also a tough one because for you and I, we're not athletes. We're not the ones playing on the court. But from observing, I can say that it has to do a little bit with player dedication and hard work. Recently Kevin Durant was put on a minute restriction because of his injury. He's only playing a maximum of 30 minutes. But within those 30 minutes, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook played so hard. They came back seeing that their team was close to being the worst team in the Western Conference. They were only ahead of like the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lakers when Westbrook and Durantula were gone for a minute. And they brought it all the way back in standings of being ninth in the Western Conference, almost making that top eight and a playoff contender, which I know they want to be because of the fact of they've been top three teams in the West for a few years. When you see your team down the way they were, of course Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook want to come back with a vengeance and get them to the playoffs and probably even a finals run. Even when Kevin Durant was injured with that humongous boot, he would still warm up, get a couple shots in, get a lot of shots in actually, and that shows how much dedication and hard work that he has. And unfortunately, when they get to the real game, then they play as hard as they used to before they were injured their first time, and you see the results. But for a few years now, the trend of injuries and questions have always been off of returning superstars. How long are they going to play? And how much are they going to play minutes wise? Last year it was for Kobe and Derrick Rose when they got so much hype coming back, and then next thing you know they got injured again. Now this year you're looking at them like, don't go hard in the paint, don't try to dunk, don't try to lay up because you get startled. And for this season, you're looking at Kevin Durant, worried about him because of his reoccurring injury.
From a comparative standpoint, as I hear you talk about, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and the injuries that were upon them, and there was such a concerted effort to really, as you said, fight back and really put their team in a better position, for the sake of the season. I was thinking comparatively, when the NFL, when they modified their practice, practice time and, the amount of days you can go full contact, and a lot of that was, to curtail and combat sort of, concussion lawsuits and the amount of injuries. And I was wondering if, obviously, the NFL and the NBA are two different leagues, but could Adam Silver, could he step in and maybe potentially maybe reduce games, alter practice time? I remember years ago when they trotted out the new Spalding basketball, and it wasn't really tested and it didn't work, so they went back to the old basketball. Could the NBA as a league change, practice scheduling formats? Would they ever consider reducing games in the regular season? Going from 82, it's a long season. Would they ever consider doing that, do you think?
For Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he has to look at two things. games and minutes. During the preseason, he tried to lower minutes in a game and didn't do 12 minutes a quarter, but did 11 minutes a quarter. It was even televised. And some players liked it because of the fact they can get some rest, especially it's preseason, so you're not trying to play all that hard. But for the fans, they don't like it because of the fact of, it's basketball is entertaining. So what happens when you only watch an hour and 30 of basketball instead of like 2 hours and a half? Are they also going to increase halftime shows for ESPN and NBA on TNT and NBA TV? It's very hard for you to approve of something like less minutes when fans don't like it. And for games, Dirk Nowitzki and LeBron James wanted to lower the games to mid 60s, 64, 65, 66 games, which of course you got to take account of what the players want because you don't want them getting upset. But at the same time, you're talking about two guys who have already won rings. Dirk Nowitzki is probably on his last leg, so of course he wants some rest. And for LeBron James, when there was a shortened season, he won a ring with the Miami Heat. So I can see why he would agree with Dirk Nowitzki on mid-60 games. Yes, he won a ring with a full season, but when he did win in a shortened season, that ring was kind of an asterisk mark with a lot of fans and, of course, a lot of LeBron haters. Michael Jordan had an opinion about Dirk Nowitzki and LeBron James' comments about shortening games, which he disapproved of the fact of doing that because he went off of experience of when he played hard, he played during a flu game, and so did Dirk Nowitzki. I don't know why he would really want to shorten games, but this was back in an era where if you had a concussion, you sometimes didn't know that you had a concussion because technology wasn't as advanced as it is today, where if you get a concussion, you know what type of concussion it is, you know how long to sit out. Back in the day, you had a concussion and you would still play. So when Michael Jordan is brought into the conversation, it's kind of an old school versus new school, my experience versus your experience type of situation. And I don't think the fans of the NBA would agree with Dirk Nowitzki or LeBron James' statement as well. Basketball is entertaining, so why not watch it for a full season? Unless Adam Silver is going to find a way to give teams bye weeks so they can get rest in practices, just like they do in the NFL. But if teams have bye weeks, then he's going to have to change the process of network television with ESPN games by giving lower seeds opportunities to be on primetime television, which will probably lose audiences when it comes to tuning in on ESPN or NBA on TNT. Because there's nothing exciting of watching the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Utah Jazz when you can watch the Golden State Warriors versus the Clippers. But for Adam Silver, I know that he'll make the right decision for the players, for the fans, and to make money.
So far, from what I can tell, I would definitely agree that Commissioner Adam Silver definitely has the wherewithal and the awareness to make the changes that are better suited for the NBA. But it must also be stated that the league he now has is different from his predecessor, David Stern, in the sense that a lot of the stars, the young stars for David Stern's era of NBA are now older. So now that torch is going to be passed. So when guys like LeBron and Dirk, who are older now, but were once younger for Stern's era, and they see kind of this new wave of Blake and Durant, maybe it's a signal for them to be aware and say, hey, we've handled all the toil and the burn and grind of it, and for the future and the betterment of the longevity of the games going forward, we got to make sure we don't run these guys into the ground. It's very easy for older stars to say in the 80s in a different era, well, in my day, well, in your day it was different. There wasn't as many games played. There wasn't as much, the league has expanded so much. There wasn't as much foreign exposure. Different teams, smaller markets have expanded. The league is different now. and it's important to be aware that the league is in a different place than previous. So it's really injudicious to compare those on those same standards. And one of the advantages that the NBA has experienced now is that sometimes you can have on any given night, lower level teams can potentially contend with higher level teams. I give you the 2014 playoffs where you had the Charlotte Hornets play the Miami Heat. And yes, the Hornets, or then Bobcats, did lose in a 4-game sweep. That was about as entertaining as a series as there potentially could ever have been. And that spread all around the league. Another one of the aspects of the NBA that I do applaud is that they do give different markets to feature different games. So yes, you may look at a game like, oh man, it's a Thursday night and I've got to watch the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Sacramento Kings. Well, for a lot of people on the East Coast who don't see those two teams play, or who've heard about the players that they had, but they're not able to put them in a context of what their ability is like, those Thursday night games help give, East Coast viewers and different viewers all across, the world a chance to see DeMarcus Cousins and how talented Ricky Rubio is. So I do think the NBA has helped given a more spotlight on teams that weren't previously considered, and that does add more games. Does that correlate with lower TV revenue? It's very possible. But I think you have to curtail and adjust as the league is different now to better suit. And I think if there's one person who fits a league that's better suited to do so, I think it's Commissioner Adam Silver. So it's going to be interesting to watch as teams and organizations and as players, as they monitor themselves and their organization going forward. But it was something to definitely keep an eye out for.
Most definitely, Paul. But listeners, this is your turn. Comment and tell us what you think Adam Silver should do, how he can benefit the players and the fans when it comes to NBA injuries. And also, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the P&K podcast. Thanks, listeners.